Welcome to the Create Your Empowered Self podcast. This how-to podcast is focused on empowering you to live your best life by incorporating the principles of the law of attraction, NLP, meditation, and other spiritual teachings. I'm Jeannie Hall, a certified NLP practitioner and creative empowerment coach. Let's get you empowered. Hello, and welcome to the very special 25th episode of the Create Your Empowered Self podcast. This podcast is entitled, Have You Hit F It Yet? So obviously, this podcast will contain the R-rated kind of language the explicit rating on iTunes was created for. And to that end, if cursing or profanity offends you, or if younger ears are listening, please skip this one or wait till the kids are in bed. Thanks. So today's foul-mouthed episode is actually inspired by an important, huge and life-changing kind of important decision that I have made. And the decision that I'm making might be considered downright dangerous to some, and I used to feel that way. In fact, I actually got coached on this a while back, probably about a year or so ago, because the decision that I've made, while not physically dangerous, at one point it felt very financially dangerous to me. It felt crazy. It felt risky. And yet, I still wanted to make it. And so my desire a year ago was to figure out how to get myself to be able to make the decision that I am now in the process of making and have it work for me. So if you've listened to this podcast before, you know I'm all about positive but believable belief systems that then empower you to do what you really, really want in your life, to really go after those deep-seated desires and those dreams that we want to fulfill. So to help me tell the story of what is happening right now and to encourage you to follow your own dreams, whether it feels risky or crazy or dangerous or not, I'm going to quote a couple of movies today. And one of the movies is one of my all-time favorites. It's from the 90s. And whenever I was getting ready for this podcast, this one quote popped into my head. So I'm going to share it with you now. The movie is True Lies with Jamie Lee Curtis and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And in the movie, Jamie Lee Curtis's character is this bored, very conservative looking housewife. She wears glasses and she has very sensible shoes and reasonable hairdo, and this is not a risk-taking looking lady, okay? She's in her 40s in the movie, and she works in an office where nothing exciting ever happens. She's had the job for a long time. She has a teenage daughter who's pretty surly, and a husband who misses stuff at home all the time due to his job as a computer rep. Another thing she finds almightily boring. And she loves her family very much, of course, but she's highly unsatisfied with her life the way it is. And at one point, a stranger comes into her office and he's acting all cloak and dagger. It's very odd. And he approaches her and he feeds her this line about danger and life and death and insists she take his briefcase. And she's scared, so she refuses. But then he flies out the door and he leaves his briefcase with her and doesn't give her a choice in the matter. He just leaves it and runs off. And so as this just incredible strangeness of this encounter with this dude fades, of course her curiosity kicks in. What in the hell just happened, right? So she pries open the briefcase and discovers evidence that this mysterious man is an international spy. And when he later meets up with her and asks her to go on a mission with him, she agrees, even though it seems completely out of character for her, because she wants something more in her life. And she ends up getting entangled in this crazy mission of her husband's, who, unlike the mysterious stranger who is putting on a show and a facade, her husband actually is an international spy. So when he asks her, her husband asks her later, and she doesn't even know it's her husband because he's hidden, but he asks her, why did she make such a crazy and foolish decision? And she's angry at the time because she's basically being interrogated, and she doesn't know it's her husband interrogating her. So she responds with, I was reckless, and I was wild, and I fucking did it. And the reason she did it was because she was beginning to feel dead inside. She felt like she wasn't valuable, wasn't important, and really wasn't even alive. So she made this rash decision that ultimately exposed her husband's clandestine and thrilling real profession and changed the entire course of his life and her life and even her daughter's life. So right now, the reason I'm talking about True Lies is because I feel a little bit like Jamie Lee Curtis's character. Not that I'm in any way in the same position, because what I'm living is real life and what she was living was a movie. And my husband is not an international spy. And I'm not a bored housewife, not really. But I am making a decision that may be considered rash by some. And yet it's a decision I need to make. And it's a decision that feels right to me. It feels light, right, easy, and fun. And I will link to the previous podcast that I talked about the importance of that in your decision making and in your life in general, featuring the awesome Kelly Cooper, my mentor and coach, and someone I look up to very much. And now all I have to do, now that I've made this decision, is follow through with it. So here's another movie quote that I'm going to share with you. There's this other movie that I love, and I've actually mentioned in the podcast before, and it's called Deadpool. You may have heard of it. And I'm not referencing the second Deadpool movie, though I saw it in the theater not too terribly long ago and thoroughly enjoyed it. No, what I'm talking about is the first Deadpool movie that came out, I guess, a couple years ago now. And in that movie, there's a character who asks Wade, which is Deadpool's real name, if he's finally hit fuck it yet, or words to that effect. And Wade has. And spoiler alert, since this movie is way newer than True Lies, if you don't want to be spoiled for this movie, skip ahead about a minute and 20 seconds. So Wade has definitely hit fuck it in his own life. He has terminal cancer throughout some very vital areas of his body, including his brain. And this other character, I'll call him Jared since that's what Wade called him, has offered him this miracle cure. And you see, Wade doesn't trust Jared. Not really. But he's run out of options. And he believes this may be his only chance to survive, to live at all. So Wade lets this group of psychopaths that the Jared character brings him to do all these crazy experiments on him. And ultimately, even though these experiments add up to what can only be called physical torture, really, he mutates and ends up scarred from head to toe. And Wade becomes the character Deadpool, a superhero, or really an anti-hero, who can heal from basically anything, including his previously fatal cancer diagnosis. So he cured his cancer by paying a price, and all because he said, fuck it. Have you ever hit that point in any aspect of your own life? Maybe you decided to break up with someone who was abusive, or they were just incompatible with you because it took you a while, but you had to admit it to yourself that you weren't actually happy with them. Maybe you went back to school, even though you're at the top of your current field and got paid well to do what you were doing. But you realized, I'm going back to school even though I'm not 18 to 25 anymore, because I actually don't like what I do for a living. Maybe you feel like Jamie Lee Curtis's character in True Lies, like I do, and you want to do something wild and reckless because you feel like the life you don't have is passing you by. Maybe you decided to really research the spiritual side of things like the law of attraction and NLP and personal growth and development because you aren't actually fulfilled by the belief system you've held up until now. Maybe you've decided to dump the grind or even the full-on misery of a 9-to-5 job that's really more like 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. anyway. Because if you're really honest, you know you fucking hate your job. So if any of these scenarios sound familiar, this episode is for you. Because at a certain point in our lives, we come to the understanding that we deserve happiness and we deserve fulfillment. And whatever has been keeping us locked in that unhappy place, whether it's our limiting beliefs, a relationship, a career field, a job, or anything else really, you may decide that continuing with what has been is simply no longer worth it. Financial support and an extensive past together may be the reason we stay in an unhealthy relationship. But when we realize our miserable past hasn't been serving us and we can get support from somewhere else, well, we can let that relationship go, can't we? We can be brave and honest enough to say, fuck it, I deserve more than this. And we can begin anew in a fresh, exciting field, too, if our current field or career is no longer enriching us, if it ever did. How many of us choose a field based on someone else's idea of what we should do or someone else's advice? Hey, you're smart, you should be a lawyer or a doctor, or you should be an accountant, or you should be this or that or the other thing. And it's always well intended, but what if you do that? What if you go through all the schooling and all the time it takes to get those degrees? You get into the field, you get established even, and then you just wind up being miserable. Lots of people do. And what freaks us out, I think, is that then, because we've invested all this time and money, we feel like we have to stick with it. But I've invested all this time and money, I can't just throw it all away. I can't just change course now. I've already dug in, right? But the truth of the matter is, dug in or not, you can still change your course. Because it's your life. And no one else is living it but you. You can say, if you want to, fuck it, I'll just go back to school. I'll do something else. And if the belief system you've had up till now has left you feeling scared or angry or anxious or resentful in your life, when what you've always wanted is to feel whole and at peace, then you might say, fuck it. My upbringing and beliefs are so limiting. I'm going to look into something different that feels better to me. Or if you've been toiling away in a job you don't like, when you have a passion you've been too afraid to truly pursue, you might say, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go after my passion and live my dream no matter what. Is this you? Have you hit fuck it yet? Often getting to the fuck it point is basically when you become cognizant of your own bigger picture. When you look at where you are in your life and feel unsatisfied by it. When you feel like there's more. There were so many things you wanted to feel, so many places you wanted to go, so many things you wanted to do and be that you haven't felt, you haven't gone to, or you haven't done yet. And life is short. So you decide to risk it. No matter how scary or new, you decide facing that fear will be worth it in the end. So maybe you'll write that book you've always said you would write. Maybe you'll start giving your time or money or both to a cause that's near and dear to your heart. Maybe you'll start to follow your passion because doing so won't only help you, it'll help so many others. Maybe you'll notice how sick you are of having the same bad relationship show up in your life, this repeating pattern. Maybe you'll quit taking jobs that leave you feeling empty, or worse, like your soul is being crushed day by day and hour by endless hour. Because when you decide to be brutally honest with yourself, when you start to listen to your own instincts and your own intuition, when you take a step towards what feels better and what lights you up like a Christmas tree, when you say fuck it, the things you desire will meet you halfway. When you start to do things that make you feel good and feel happy, more good and happy things flow to you naturally. That is the law. And that's what I've finally decided to do for myself. The time has come, dear listeners. I have decided to make the leap I've been contemplating and talking about for so long. I've decided to leave my soul-crushing day job behind. I have, in fact, hit fuck it. Why? Because I had no choice but to notice this repeating pattern when I really looked at myself and my life. Because when I was young, I knew I wanted to help people, and I knew I loved learning, so I obtained my teaching degree thinking that was the answer. But in that time period and in the state I lived in, teaching jobs were pretty hard to come by. So I went into retail. And I did that for about 5 years and then just decided, ugh, this is not so fun. So then I tried the insurance industry, as if that would be fun. By the way, it wasn't. And during that time in insurance, I discovered that I loved to write. So I started to do that on the side. And after that 5 years of being an insurance agent, I finally got the opportunity to use my teaching degree, and I moved several states away and became a teacher for the first time ever. Cool, right? This was the solution, right? This is what I had an education for. This is what I had my degree in, and it was going to be awesome, right? Well, not quite. But the truth is, I liked parts of it. I actually loved parts of it. But something you may not realize is that public school teachers have to deal with so much crap that has nothing really to do with teaching. And if you haven't worked in a public school lately, you may not have any idea what I'm talking about, but trust me on this. Teaching is no longer a happy activity for a lot of people, even if they once loved it. And it's gotten so bad, at least for me, it had gotten so bad in 2006 to 2010 when I was a teacher, that in 2011, I didn't feel safe anymore. like physically safe. Like I felt like I could be injured or even killed in this school environment. And also I was sick all the time. Like they give 11 or 12 sick days to teachers, and then you get the summer off, and I used every sick day every year. I was constantly ill, constantly ill. My students were always telling me, "Are you sick again?" Asking me, "Are you sick, Miss Hall? Are you sick?" I was always sick. And it should have been more obvious to me. That was a sign from the universe, if there ever was one, and God, and whatever you want to call that higher power. I think that was a direct sign trying to tell me something. And I, for 5 years, didn't pay any attention to it. But finally, after 5 years, I had had enough. And the whole safety issue really came to a head for me. So I decided enough's enough. So I left. And I left without a job. And I couldn't find any other job for several months. And I about had a nervous breakdown because of it. Because financially, that's a very scary place to be. And then I found an insurance job, talk about going in circles, right? That was commission only. And even though I got recertified and with the state to be an insurance agent like I had before, it was completely commission, and my client appointments kept falling through, so I ended up losing money on that particular venture. Ugh, right? Nothing worked. So I ended up going back to the one industry I could get my foot in the door in, which was retail. And the reason I went back to retail, even though I already knew I didn't like it, was because my fear and angst was blocking every other opportunity that I know must have been trying to come to me. I know now how the universe works, how the world works. And I'm sure that because I was in a fearful, panicky state the whole time, I was blocking any opportunity of something better that could have come to me then. So I went back to retail. Part-time cashier, $9 an hour. So I went from teaching, which granted doesn't pay well, let's be honest. Anybody who knows what a teacher makes knows it's not much. And so I ended up in retail, like I said, $9 an hour as a part-time cashier, which clearly is way worse on the financial scale. But I had the security of at least having a paycheck, no matter how minuscule, coming to me. And I no longer felt like I was going to be physically harmed like I did when I was with the public school system. So this is better, right? It's not great, but it's better. That's what I thought at the time. But I'm sure you've noticed, as I've been talking, that this was a pattern. I went in circles. I went from a teaching degree to retail, to insurance, to teaching, to insurance, and back to retail. Vicious cycle. And wasn't happy with any of it, really. I was so afraid to actually pursue my writing dream that I made a career out of doing the same types of jobs over and over again. I was on a merry-go-round and going nowhere fast. And so unhappy with that part of my life, with my quote-unquote career. But luckily, or maybe it wasn't luck at all, I discovered the secret and the law of attraction. And I discovered spirituality, and I immediately resonated with these brand new ideas I'd never been exposed to before. And I began to start thinking way more positively. And I tried things like meditation and focused visualization for the first time. And miracle of miracles, within months, I was published. I became a published author. But was that the end all be all? No. Because though I had excellent reviews, I didn't have the money to market my book more. And book publishers nowadays only market best-selling authors anyway. Those J.K. Rowlings and those Stephen Kings are very rare nowadays. They always have been, frankly. And I love them both. But I was neither of those people. And my trajectory as an author didn't resemble either one of those either. As most writers don't. So, I didn't make enough money to quit my retail day job, even though it was paying me very little. And I did start climbing the ranks at my retail job, not because I loved what I was doing, and not because I had this desire to excel in this environment. It was because of the money, let's be honest. I needed to pay bills. So then, recently, very recently, I discovered life coaching and online instruction, that you can create these online courses and you can become a life coach and you can help other people in a meaningful way. And online instruction is so amazing because you're basically teaching people who really want to learn this specific thing that you're teaching. And it's basically like having the best parts of a teaching career without any of the negative side effects. And then life coaching, which is even better. Becoming a life coach is the best decision I've ever made, other than marrying my hubby. I find life coaching fulfilling in a way that nothing else has been in my life. There's something so inherently powerful in meeting someone or talking with someone and giving them the answers they need to feel better than they did a mere hour before. And it's not because I'm offering my clients a quick fix or a magic pill. It's because I'm giving them the tools and techniques that empower them to help themselves. I'm a facilitator. And I absolutely love doing that. And my clients are just the best. They're the best. So when you've decided in your life that you have suffered enough, when you've decided you're willing to take on the challenge of being who you're really capable of being, of what you know deep down you've always been meant to be, maybe you'll do like I have, and you'll say fuck it too. Maybe you'll decide it's your time to be happy and satisfied with your life. I hope so. And if anything I'm saying in this episode resonates with you or connects to you in a positive way, I hope you'll allow me the privilege of being your coach. And I hope you check out the various coaching packages I offer, or even the single hour-long sessions that I offer, because the first half hour is always free. So if you're tired of your life going in a direction you'd prefer it not go, if you're ready to say fuck it, I'd love to help you along your journey. So if you're like me and ready to jump into something better, something new, I can offer you the support you need to follow the path you've always wanted to follow anyway. Whenever you're ready to finally say, fuck it. And just so you know, I do donate 10% of all of my coaching revenue to St. Jude's Hospital on cancer research for children's cancer. And I love being able to donate to such a worthy cause. I consider it an honor and a privilege to be able to donate to such a great cause, and I consider it a privilege and an honor to be a life coach and help people. And I'm so glad that I have figured out how to make my life matter and make it meaningful. And if I can help you do the same, even better. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. And as always, I hope you have an empowered day, week, month, and year. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening to the Create Your Empowered Self podcast. If you've enjoyed this content or found it helpful, please let me know by leaving a review. I upload podcasts every Wednesday and Saturday, so subscribe to receive these regular updates. Now, go out there and live a more empowered life.